You're very welcome on to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. We're back after the last international break of 2024. Seems like there's been 10, 15, 20 of them, but we're done. Thank goodness for those Premier League fans. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by Mark O'Hare and Adrian Clarke. And maybe start with you, Adrian, before leading on to Mark's promise pre-international break. But Adrian, you seem to get on quite well with Ian Fortune. There was an openness to the podcast. I was listening going, I don't really know where this podcast is going, but it was great listening.
Are you just trying to get me to say how good looking you are again? You just want me to remind everyone?
No,
is this where you're leading me?
I'd love to start this again now, to be honest.
We agreed. You were the most handsome podcast host in Ireland. I didn't want to go over the top, but I think you got that. But no, I enjoyed it. It was a really good show. A little bit different. He's a great character, and I think we picked a few winners. So it was all good. You're allowed on holiday again now.
Yeah, I know. I feel more comfortable going on holiday. Brighton, both teams to score. The highlight definitely for Adrian and the long shots for sure. Mark, we got a few comments saying, have Mark O'Hare and Adrian Clarke started punting on the Greyhounds, which I thought was quite funny because they see Ian Fortune, host of our Greyhound podcast. They would have got quite a fright, or at least a couple of comments did. But Mark, you did promise to leave the podcast if it was 0-0 in one of the Bundesliga games you picked out, and after 30 minutes and a missed penalty, you were under massive pressure. It wasn't legally binding, but I'd say I would have struggled to get you back.
Yeah, I'd be true to my word if that was the case, but I was surprised myself when I came out with that comment. But I was very confident that game wasn't going to disappoint, particularly after the previous weekend where things didn't fall our way. But it came back with a vengeance. Really, that game was a terrific highlight from the Bundesliga last week. Frankfurt winning 3-2 away at Stuttgart. So yeah, hacked up with the goals, which is what we wanted.
Absolutely, Mark, smashing out of the park as always. Now, one thing we do usually talk about, particularly at the end of the podcast, is to make sure gambling enhances the enjoyment of a match. If you're watching it, particularly at the weekend, one of the big games, making sure it doesn't get in the way of other parts of your life. And Mark, say for gambling week is this week, and I think it's always important to throw it over to one of our experts like yourself to just speak real talk in terms of how you manage to stay in control, because you can't win every week. We've seen it on our own podcast, but also I'm sure everyone listening has had losing weeks. How do you deal with that and stay in control and make sure it doesn't take over your life?
Yeah, it can be difficult. I think what you said there at the start is hugely important and worth highlighting again. Betting should be enhancing the enjoyment factor, and that's something that we should never get away from. Really, is we do this, and if ever you sort of lose the thrill, lose the excitement of betting, that should be our number one aim. And if you do lose that, it's difficult to come back from. But we need to enjoy what we're doing as opposed to sort of using this as a vehicle to make money. Very, very few people do manage that. We try to show people the right way, but if you can win a few quid along the way, brilliant. But you have to find the fun. You have to find the fun in the process, really, or it's going to be very difficult to survive those tough moments, which, as you say, do occur, and they do occur for absolutely everyone. Even the best punters in the world will have poor runs, downturns, and it can be difficult to sort of navigate at the best of times. And my mental process, I don't know if I'm fortunate or unfortunate, but the way in which I sort of deal with it is it's very manager speak this, but I try to deal with each day as a new day, if you like. So irrespective of how good or bad my Saturday was, I try and go to bed and wake up on Sunday with a fresh mindset and attack the day as a fresh, basically. And whatever happened before is irrelevant. Whatever happens from here on in is what's important. And if you had a particularly bad week or bad month, I'd absolutely support taking a break away from the game, a bit of a rest, a bit of a refresh, come back when you're feeling ready to get back on the horse. And people do hate the international breaks, but for me they're an absolute godsend because there's so much football these days. The football calendar is getting packed every year, it seems, and I think it's impossible to try and keep up with everything all of the time. So these days, personally, I rarely punt on Thursdays now, sort of taken out the Europa League and Conference League. I try not to even watch it too much in the early stages either, because I do think it's important to have a night off or some time away from betting and football to give your brain a bit of a rest. I do think those cooling off periods are essential, really, if you're going to be successful long term. So don't be afraid to take a breather. Kind of an obvious thing too as well, but always be in charge of your betting bank and work off a strict staking plan too. So they're in place to obviously ensure bad runs don't have a sort of devastating effect on your finances. And if you're sort of new to betting, or if you've heard those sort of betting banks and staking plans for the first time, there's loads of resources online which you can sort of learn about and how to sort of put your process in place. And I guess the captain obvious thing here is don't go chasing losses, which is something you'll always hear from punters. It's the quickest place, the slipperiest slope basically in betting is to go chasing when you've had a bad day or a bad week. So if you are struggling, just take yourself out of the equation. Don't bet or reduce your stake, reduce your volume, and obviously things should correct itself once variance bounce back your way as well. But sorry, a bit of a sort of stream of consciousness there, but hopefully something resonates. But if not, I'm on Twitter, Blue Sky now as well, and happy to sort of answer any questions and direct messages, etc. If you feel you want a bit more advice.
Absolutely, well said, Mark. Opening himself up there to people who want to reach out for advice on anything to do with that and staying in control and bankroll. And also Judah and Doug on our NFL podcast, if you do want to catch, even if you're not into NFL, catch the first 3 or 4 minutes of that. The guys spoke a lot of the topics that Mark touched on there, but well said, particularly on, if you're watching a game and you don't have a bet and you think the result, I would have backed that, there is that conscious bias that you always think you'd back a bet that you haven't, if that makes sense. So we're checking out the NFL podcast and listening to Mark, as he said there, but also checking out the responsible gambling page on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Usual format here. We're going to start with 4 marquee games in the Premier League: Leicester, Chelsea, City, Tottenham, Ipswich United, Newcastle, West Ham and M&F. Any other bets, long shots and best bets. So let's start with the early kickoff on TNT, Leicester versus Chelsea, and take a look at the betting that we currently have on matchbook.com. You can back Leicester City 6.6 underdogs to Chelsea, who are 154. The draw is available at 5.0. Both teams to score, yes, 169. The Asian handicap line sees Leicester get a 1.25 goal head start, and the total for this is 3.5. So Adrian, take it away here. I mean, you got a lot of stick. I mean, so I was away. I could see comments coming in on YouTube, so I tried to turn it off eventually. But one of them was Adrian's bias for Arsenal, and I thought you nearly had it. I thought it was a good bet. Arsenal were a decent price, but Chelsea did well. They're starting to become a really decent team.
Yeah.
Away to Leicester here. What do you think of that price?
Yeah, that was a fair result actually. In the end, Arsenal just getting the point at Chelsea. I think if anyone was going to win, it might have been Arsenal. But yeah, no, fair enough. But if anything, I'm biased against Arsenal when it comes to punting, because I'd always look on I always think twice before tipping up Arsenal. But for that very reason, I was just very confident ahead of that game. Chelsea do impress me. I think Maresca is doing a terrific job, considering he didn't have a team really when he joined. It was very fractured, and he's just nailed down on the players that he wants, the players he likes. He's made some difficult decisions, left out the record signing Enzo Fernandez quite a lot, and among others, and just gone with the core group that he trusts, and they're by and large delivering. What really surprised me is how they work as a team, how aggressive they've become. Because at Leicester were clinical. They weren't aggressive. They just played one brand of football and that was it. But Chelsea have a few more strands to them, and that's really caught the eye. And I still think they'll be hard pushed to finish top 4, but they might. They've got a chance. I'd probably see them for sure top 6, maybe fourth and fifth, potentially a duel between them and Tottenham for me, but. Look, Chelsea, I make favourites to win this game. They've won at Wolves, they've won at West Ham, they've won at Bournemouth already. A lot of their points have come on the road this season. And it's not going to faze them. I just think that their attack is going to be too good for Leicester's defence. I do think that Steve Cooper's had issues with his back 4 this season. He's changed the personnel around a bit. But it's just a quality issue. Are they good enough to sort of be successful at Premier League level, some of these guys? And I don't know, particularly at centre half. 7 of Leicester's 11 opponents so far have scored at least twice. And this is with Leicester having a good season. Leicester keep scoring, don't they? They've scored in 10 of 11, which is why I'm kind of leaning towards both teams to score here and a Chelsea win. It's a lovely price, 2.94. As I said, Leicester scored in all but one game so far this season. They've scored in all 5 at the King Power. They've actually scored 1 goal in all of those games. And I can absolutely see them scoring 1 goal here again. But will they limit Chelsea to 1 or less? That's where I think they fall down. I think that no matter what tactics Cooper deploys here, I just don't know if there'll be enough to stop a Cole Palmer, Madueke, who's in good nick, Nicholas Jackson and co. As I said, 7 of 11 have scored 2 or more against Leicester so far this season. Leicester historically don't have a great record against teams in the top 4. Anyway, they're winless in the last 13 in that kind of game. And of course, during the international break, I believe they've lost Jordan Ayew and Fatawu to injury, which is a real blow, particularly with Ayew, who's bailed them out a few times. Obviously, the Maresca factor, coming back gives the game an edge. It might be a bit extra for them to sort of get one over on the guy that left them. But so I give Leicester a chance of being competitive, but ultimately I'll fall on Chelsea here, and both teams to score at a nice price.
Okay, almost 2-1, 2.94 Chelsea to win, and both teams to score. Mark, if you told Leicester City fans at the start of the season they'd be where they are, considering that they would also avoid a points deduction, they definitely would have taken it. So they're doing okay.
Yeah, they're doing much better than pre-season expectations, much better than my pre-season expectations too. But has to be said, if you look at the underlying metrics and the ratings, they are vastly overachieving. They are one of the sort of 3 worst teams in the division so far, and perhaps they've had the rub of the green in certain matches. They've been very, very clinical in the final third, as Adrian pointed out. They've scored 10 of 11 league games so far this season. Only Man City have a better hit rate in terms of scoring goals in matches, which is quite remarkable, really. The first time they failed to score was the last time out against Manchester United, when Jamie Vardy was missing and they looked quite impotent without him leading the line. He should be back this weekend, which is a big plus. But as Adrian says, Fatawu, I think, is a big loss, actually. His absence I wasn't aware of before I sort of put my selection in, which is very similar to Adrian's, actually. It's both teams to score and Chelsea double chance at around 1.8. But that is a hammer blow if he is missing, because Buonanotte is also suspended as well. So that's sort of taking out 2 of their real sort of chief curators in the final third, which is a massive blow for Leicester in forward areas, because they have only scored 5 home goals in 5 games. And look, they have been scoring quite regularly in matches, but not scoring more than 1 often. And I guess the sort of balancing act here is that Chelsea, as we know, are flawed defensively. They've kept just 1 clean sheet themselves. Sorry, 3 clean sheets themselves this season. We know the goalkeeper isn't up to scratch. We also know, though, that Moises Caicedo, arguably their best player, I think, this season, outside of the obvious candidates in forward areas, could and will be fatigued after playing in South America on Tuesday night in World Cup qualifiers, this being the early kickoff on Saturday as well. So limited time to get back and sort of back in the groove ahead of Premier League football. So that's the reason I haven't backed Chelsea to win the match, actually, is the early kickoff immediately after the international break. I do like to trade a little bit carefully in this particular slot after an international break. And otherwise, I'd be very confident with Chelsea, because they have adapted quicker and better than I expected following the coaching change and all the goings on in the summer. I think when Pochettino left, they were quite understandably and fairly rated probably the 4th best team in the Premier League at the end of last season. And I think they've carried that on, actually, and quite quickly under Maresca. They've come through a tough run of games and performed pretty well in all of them. Probably average against Manchester United at Old Trafford, but against Arsenal, decent, beat Newcastle, lost narrowly at Liverpool as well. A deserved point, I thought, against Arsenal. Looked reasonably comfortable for the most part, didn't implode when falling behind either. So, I think they'll be feeling quite good about themselves. But defensively is always the issue. So if you look at the both teams to score element, irrespective of that team news, BTTS has won in 17 of the 22 combined Premier League games involving Chelsea and Leicester this season. They've each failed to score just once, and they've managed 3 clean sheets between them. So, I think if you back the both teams to score and double chance element, you're just basically backing the score draw alongside any Chelsea win, really. Because, if you back Leicester, just get to get on the score sheet too.
Okay, yeah, so the jump is from 169 both teams to score. Add in Chelsea double chance, you get 183. Feeling a bit ambitious. Let's lock in Chelsea win and both teams to score 294. Some things never change, Adrian. So we're off to a good start, aggressive start. And looking forward to the next for the 2 cases here. Manchester City versus Tottenham. This is going to be our money back £10 bet builder special. Manchester City 154 favourites. Tottenham 6.4. The draw is 5.1. Both teams to score 1-2 or just over at 152. The Asian handicap line, Spurs get a 1.25 goal head start, and the goal line is 3.5. Pretty much 50-50. The over actually favourite there at 192. So, Mark, we'll hand this back to you. And look, but you're expecting, I guess, in goals in this game. It's lending itself to goals. But we were talking off here. Manchester City have a couple of defenders that are potentially coming back because they've had a bit of an injury crisis. That is, we might see over the next few weeks they slowly get a few players back.
Yeah, I know some people are quite keen to write City off as an entity in terms of the title race and in the future, really. So fascinated to see where they do go from here. And Pep Guardiola said before or after the defeat to Brighton that the international break was coming at the right time for Man City. I think we could all agree on that. He said it gives his team a chance to clean our hands and provide us something of a bit of a reset, really. It's been a wretched couple of weeks for City. And that Brighton game was quite interesting because I thought the first half they were pretty good for the most part and complete control. And the second half capitulation after Brighton made those tactical tweaks. It's rare you've seen a City side and a Guardiola side sort of being unable to sort of stem the bleeding or manage to find an answer for it. And that Rodri's absence is being hard felt. We knew that was always going to be the case. They've got nobody there to sort of link the play in central areas or break up play and provide that wall in front of a fragile defence. Kovacic did it effectively in that first half, but then got overrun. And yeah, it's something that needs to be worked out, but something that's not been talked about often enough, I think, really, is the lack of defenders City have had available. And in that Brighton game, they start with Simpson Pusey making his Premier League debut alongside Gvardiol. And I was going to say a half-fit Kyle Walker. I'm not even sure he was half-fit for that game, but he was getting rinsed by Matoma and Estupiñán quite regularly, really. And just the lack of cohesion in that defence, it was quite marked, really. So I do expect an improvement. Rodri's still missing, but we're expecting at least some of these players to return. Stones, Akanji, Ake, Diaz, Foden, Grealish. There's a chance that all of them could be available, or at least most of them. And suddenly City don't look quite as vulnerable defensively. And yeah, I think we will start to see a bit of a bite back. They still are only 5 points off the top, and they still are the best team in the country when they're on it. So, I know Spurs, of course, Pep a few problems down the years, but just wonder whether they're capable of keeping City at bay when City are in the mood to kind of have a bit of a reaction. This is a Tottenham team without Van der Ven and without Bentancur as well, and a sketchy road record as well. 3 defeats in the last 4 Premier League away games, just 1 win on the road this season. And the way in which they defended against Ipswich in that first half suggests a significant improvement is required at best, really, to kind of give them any sort of hope, really. So I said to you off air as well, that if you gave me a task to kind of make a pro Spurs case in this match, I definitely could. But ultimately, I think City will bounce back and provide a bit of a response, really. So in what should be a good game, a goal-heavy game, Spurs aren't going to come here and defend. They're going to come here and give it their best shot. And these matches at the Etihad do tend to explode with goals. I don't have the numbers to hand. Adrian might, but this match almost always guarantees 3, 4, 5 goals. So City to win and both teams to score. 252 was the way I was going to attack this.
Okay, and Adrian, is there always goals in this fixture?
Yeah, you know have it, didn't you? Look, Spurs scored at least twice in each of their last 3 visits to the Etihad. They won 3-2 in 21-22. They lost 4-2 the season after, and last year they drew 3-3. So Mark's nose was absolutely right in terms of this fixture being very exciting. Whereas on the flip side, when these two meet at the Spurs Stadium, it's normally a cagier affair, quite low scoring by comparison. Make of that what you will. Look, Mark's made a good case. I'm going to go with over 2.5 goals just in case Spurs draw a blank here. Over 2.5 goals has landed in 8 of 11 games for City and 8 of 11 for Tottenham as well. So they've both been involved in a lot of high-scoring matches. I'm going to go with City and over 2.5. Obviously, it's a short price, 1.9, but it just covers off a potential Spurs blank. No Bentancur, of course. We know he's suspended. Van der Ven still out, and do fear for Dragusin against Haaland. I watched Dragusin against Galatasaray just before the international break, and goodness me, he had a real going over by Osimhen on the day, and he was a bit of a mess. Haaland could have the tools to dismantle him, I think. Spurs away from home, you can't really trust them, can you? I know that they have this good record against City, but we've won 2 of 11 away from home. it's not a great record at all. The thing in their favour is the record against City. Remarkably, they've beaten them 5 times in the last 10. City have only got 3 wins of the last 10. There's a couple of draws in there as well. It's mad, really. They have been a bit of a kryptonite for Pep Guardiola, but I just don't see them slipping up here again. The international break came at the right time. They're not going to lose again, surely. I just can't. I can't see. I think they'll get their house in order with a few of those injured players back, and they'll sweep aside a Tottenham side that I still really quite like, especially going forward. It's just that the Van der Ven factor at the back for me is massive. To play the same way without your chief cover guy who bails you out so often is so risky, and I just think it's a step too far against a team like City, who are going to be fired up. The feel-good factor will be there with the news that Pep's extending his contract. I just think that it's all been timed right, really, for a City bounce back here. So City and over 2.5 for me, 1.9.
Okay, and City and both teams to score for Mark. This is our £10 money back podcast bet builder. Put £10 on the following podcast bet builder, but I'll just let Mark make the final case for adding a third selection here. So it's Manchester City to win, both teams to score, yes, and Mark over 39.5 booking points.
Yeah, if my numbers are correct, I think 8 of Man City's 11 games and 8 of Tottenham's 11 games so far this season have seen over 3.5 cards, which is the same as over 39.5 booking points. And as we know, the Premier League has seen a huge increase in cards per game outputs this season. And this match, I do believe as well, has produced plenty of cards as well. I think the last game between them, it was 3 cards each, and the previous match was 4 cards each. So that's a hefty total, even if before you sort of add in the increase in cards this season. And I always like cards in the big matches between the big teams. They do tend to have an extra edge. So 4 or more, we're not asking for a huge amount, even just below the league average, which would be 5. So yeah, it's just a nice boost to get up to 2-1.
Okay, yeah, 2-1, as Mark says, 3.0 just back. Manchester City's win, both teams score, yes, and over 39.5 booking points. And if it loses, you get your £10 money back as a free bet. Let's move on to Ipswich versus Manchester United. This is the primetime Super Sunday game. Ipswich 5.4, Manchester United under new management 168. The draw is 4.4. Both teams to score, yes, 167. The Asian handicap line will see Ipswich get a 1-goal head start, and the total for this is currently 3.5, but unders a big favorite at 162. So yeah, Adrian, are you excited to see Manchester United under Amaran?
Big time. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Actually,
yeah. It's always interesting when, a massive club gets a new manager. You're interested to see what happens. What he changes. We're all expecting a back 3. How's he going to fit everyone into that? It's fascinating. I've written a piece. I'm going to plug it. It's on the Premier League website or app at the moment.
Hey, and I've seen you're plugging it on. You're plugging on Blue Sky as well. I know Mark gave it a mention at the start. You're on Blue Sky. I know. So is Mark. It seems a nice environment, Blue Sky, for anyone who wants to come over as well.
Definitely. I'm not leaving X. But I want to give it a try. And yeah, first impressions are really nice actually. So yeah. Check out the piece if you can. New manager bounce is the thing, isn't it? And I think this is going to be tough for Ipswich. They'll be buoyant, of course, having beaten Tottenham. What a lift that was for them, and they'll fancy it. Entertaining Manchester United, but they are still chasing that first home win. The only team still waiting, I think, for a home win. So, so. We'll see. I think this is a real challenge for them. United are going to look different. They're going to be fired up. I think they'll press more, which is a problem for Ipswich because they've been caught out overplaying at the back a little bit this season. They won't change, but United, I think, will be more organised maybe with the press. I think they'll be a bit more athletic, and Ipswich really do lack a little bit of pace, particularly at centre half and in central midfield as well. They're a little bit ponderous. So if you've got runners and United have got a lot of options, I think, in that attacking midfield area where they can really penetrate an Ipswich team here. So it should be a cracking game. But I do fancy United. I'm going to go with United double chance. I'm playing it a little bit safe there, just in case there are 1 or 2 sort of first day nerves and that things don't click quite as Amarin wants them to. just covering our backs a little bit. I'm going to pair it with under 3.5 goals because every Man United game this season has gone at under 3.5 goals, which is remarkable, really. They've been involved in some quite dull matches, not really cut loose at any point. 7 of 11 Ipswich games have also gone under 3.5 goals. They are a positive team, but haven't been involved in many that have really got out of hand. And of course, they are at home, where you'd expect them to be competitive like they were against Liverpool on the opening day for the sort of first half or first hour or so of the game. United, by the way, have a great record against newly promoted teams. Have won 17 of their last 19, drawing the other 2. So it's 20 games since they lost to a promoted team. So this isn't a match United should lose. So the double chance feels quite safe, and under 3.5. Given United's pattern, is not a bad one to pair it with. This was close to being one of my best bet actually at 1.92.
Okay, yeah. Adrian thinks there's decent value there following Manchester United double chance and under 3.5 goals. Mark, give us a bit of a flavour of Amaron. You probably would have watched him more than most. Obviously was linked with West Ham, nearly took the job, being linked with City prior to Manchester United. Manchester United feels somewhere in the middle between those two clubs at the moment. Is it a good appointment for Man United, and are you excited?
I am, yeah. I like him a lot. A very impressive character, and his backstory is fascinating, really. It was Casapia, I think he started at, and he almost gave up his managerial career after 1 or 2 matches, and he jacked it in, was persuaded to carry on, quickly got picked up by Braga, and was so impressive in a dozen games, beating all of the big 3 in that time and collecting a trophy. But Sporting decided to break the record for a managerial transfer fee in Portugal, not just break it, absolutely blitz it, to take him as a very young head coach, paying his release clause. It was huge news in Portugal at the time, actually, and Sporting received a huge amount of criticism and questioned what they were doing, really. But God, they were vindicated because he's overseen quite a historic period for Sporting. They're best for a number of years, decades really, and they've just been a breath of fresh air, especially as all these Portuguese clubs have to sort of deal with a lot of their big players leaving for big money in the summer, having to rest and refresh that sort of squad, and continuing to make them not just competitive but almost the best team in Portugal year on year. Hugely impressive, playing in a sort of 3-4-3 style with attacking wing backs. Likes his team to be entertaining, likes his team to press hard as well. All the sort of tactical nuances which would and should suit the Premier League. But yeah, this feels like a good move for him, I think, because United are at a low ebb, and it means the base he has to work from, really, they should only be going upwards. And it might not be this year, it might not be next year, but I do think United will start to sort of feature much more prominently in that sort of top 4 battle again. Maybe more, who knows, really. But it's a real coup for the Premier League to have him. They've got so many great coaches now in the top flight, and I think Amarin will certainly settle and improve United from where they were. So fascinated to see how they go. This is a difficult game, I think, to have a really strong view on, because obviously it's Amarin's first game. He's just come in during the international break, but most of his players have been away. So how much time has he had to work with individual players, individual tactical approaches, etc.? It's difficult to really know. I don't think he'll have been able to be too hands-on. So, will we see a significant improvement, a new manager bounce? It's hard to say, really. I think we did see a bit of that during the Van Nistelrooy interim period, but I'm just fascinated to see how United set up, who he's going to select and how he's going to pick them, because obviously we know about his love for wing backs, but it feels like an area where United are lacking a little bit at the minute. So I don't really want to back them to win a game or do anything in this match, actually, because I do think it's a bit of a banana skin. I know they had a very good record under Ten Hag against bottom half teams, both home and away, and it really wouldn't be a huge surprise to see United win this comfortably. But Ipswich have been good for the most part. They've shapeshifted a lot this season in terms of their own approach. We saw that at Spurs, where they were much more sort of diligent and difficult to break down. Whereas at Brentford, they kind of got drawn into that helter-skelter style game, which suited them in the Championship. So I think they'll be difficult to oust in this particular game. And we saw that against Liverpool on match day 1, where they gave Liverpool plenty of problems. We saw that against Aston Villa as well, albeit Villa was sort of a bit fatigued after the Champions League. So, I'm quite happy to sort of steer clear of all the major markets. And instead, I've dipped into the bet builder. I'm going to back United just to score. Ipswich have managed just 1 clean sheet all season. And also United to win over 5.5 corners. And that's largely because Amorim does like his team to play with width, likes his team to play front foot football, and they do have a tendency to rack up big corner numbers. And if you look at Ipswich so far at Portman Road, 6 Premier League games, they've conceded at least 6 corners in 5 of those matches already. 10-6-0-7-6. If Leicester and Everton can manage a haul of 6 corners or more at Portman Road, Man United certainly can. So combining the 6 corners or more with United to score comes in at 1.8.
Okay, that's on the bet builder if you'd like that. We'll lean, just because of the confidence that Adrian has in a tough enough game, we'll lock in Manchester United a double chance and under 3.5 goals. That's also on the bet builder at 192. Monday Night Football sees Newcastle host West Ham United. Very interesting game here. Newcastle 155, West Ham 6.8. The draw is available at 4.8. Both teams to score yes is 169 currently. The Asian handicap line will see West Ham get a 1-goal head start, and 2.5 is the total. Adrian, I might start with you, just because you've been very negative about West Ham and Lopetegui, sorry, and it seems to be sort of bearing fruit there. On the other hand, with Newcastle, I guess those 45 minutes at the City ground might just turn their season around, I'd say.
Well, yeah, but they did that off the back of beating Arsenal, remember? So yeah. I feel they've been doing okay. Newcastle, I think they're finding their groove again now. And that was a big win. It was the first time they'd won by 2 or more goals this season. And yeah, they really enjoyed themselves, I think. And a lot of the key men are coming into some pretty decent form. So yeah, I'm quite hot on Newcastle for this game. Just West Ham have been dreadful. The price is the price difference that you read out there is a reflection of how garbage West Ham have been under Lopetegui. At the start of the season, a lot of people were tipping West Ham to finish above Newcastle. You won't get many doing that now. It's been really limp. They lost by 3 at Forest, West Ham. They lost by 3 at Spurs. They lost by 2 at home to City, by 2 at home to Chelsea. And I think they could lose by more than 1 goal here away to Newcastle, which for me is still one of the toughest games in the calendar. Eddie Howe's record there is terrific. They love playing in front of their own support. And yeah, I think they could, if they get off to a flying start here, they could have a bit of fun against the West Ham team that hasn't shown a lot of fight, let's be honest. Harvey Barnes and Alexander Isak have both got great individual records against West Ham, so that's something to keep your eye on. West Ham travel on the road, rubbish. Not just with Lopetegui, but over a long period of time. 2 clean sheets in 28 Premier League away games, conceding an average of 2.4 a game. So they're used to shipping a lot of goals away from the London Stadium, and they're going to be put under a lot of pressure, I think, at St James's Park. I think that they can score 2 or 3 in this game, Newcastle, for sure, absolutely for sure. And the Newcastle have got a good recent record against the Hammers as well. So yeah, all in all, I'm going to put it out there now. I'm going to back Newcastle -1.25 at 2.12, just to get a little bit of a juicier price. So basically, I'm backing them to win by 2 or more goals. If they do just win the game by a goal, we only lose half our stake as well. So it's a little bit of a safety net there. So yeah, that's my thinking. I think I see this as a comfortable Newcastle victory.
Okay, yeah, Adrian really strong on Newcastle there, and anti-West Ham. Mark, yeah, and as Adrian touched on as well, but the point I was making with Forest, I guess it is those 3, the game against Forest for Newcastle, those 3 goals, it just felt like for the first time this season, Newcastle got their act together in an attacking sense.
Yeah, I got them totally wrong in that game. I was pretty bullish about Forest in that match, or at least the odds. I felt they were the wrong way around. I didn't believe Newcastle deserved to be favourites at the City ground. Still would back that same bet again, but obviously with the hindsight now, Newcastle were very impressive, at least in that second half. Totally dominant. It was probably their best win and performance of the season, especially that second half. They were confident. They played with real conviction, and that was despite going a goal down as well. And it caps kind of an excellent few weeks really for Newcastle. The results haven't always gone their way, but if you go back to that impressive point they picked up against Man City at home, they performed pretty well for the most part since then. As I say, results haven't necessarily matched, but kind kind of go back to sort of pre-Champions League days, those kind of levels they've started to hit again. The Achilles heel has been away form, but they showed against Forest with that energetic high press victory that maybe those troubles have passed, and now back at St James's Park under the Monday night lights, they will fancy their chances here, and the market clearly does too. And they're a little bit short to me. The handicap is a little bit big for me too, but I do want to find a pro Newcastle angle. Absolutely, I think there's definitely ways in to engineer something more palatable, and I think the way to do that is to back Newcastle to win alongside under 4.5 goals at 2.02. That's a really nice increase on the Newcastle on the nose. Their games this season are averaging just 2.18 goals per game. None of those matches have seen 5 strikes or more. West Ham without Kudus. West Ham, I think they had 4 shots in the first half of that turgid 0-0 draw against Everton before the international break at home. Booed off at half-time, booed off at full-time. It's not a nice place to be right now. So you could say, well, perhaps playing away might give them a bit more of a release. But look at the last 2 away days. Done 3-0 at Forest with an early red card. Done 4-1 at Spurs with a red card as well. They've taken 2 points from a possible 21 against teams in the 11th and above. They've lost half of their away days since the start of last season. Adrian's talked about their defensive record as well. You're still reliant on Thomas Souček, kind of trying to provide cover to a porous defence. You've recalled Fabianski at 39 to be your number 1. I just think it's a grim state of affairs at the minute, and just wondering how long they're going to let it trundle on, really. Sort of appointing the sort of Spanish David Moyes to take over from David Moyes never seemed like the right move forward. I like Lopetegui a lot. I think he's got a lot to offer for a certain type of club and league, but West Ham never felt the right fit. So, Newcastle under Eddie Howe at home in the Premier League, 60% win record, 8 defeats and 57, which is hugely impressive. So always a bit of a theme really on this podcast, but I'm always with Newcastle at St James's Park for the most part. And to get them at 2.02 when they're 155 just to win. That's a nice price to me.
Okay, that is the staple of the podcast, and we tend to go with the win and under 4.5 goals. But how often do we take on an Asian handicap line in general, Adrian? So let's lock it in. Let's see if that anti-West Ham case that you've been banging, that drum you've been banging the last few weeks, let's hope it pays big time here. Newcastle minus a 1/4 goal on the Asian handicap lines, 2-1-2. Some great videos on our YouTube channel explaining the Asian handicap if you haven't played in that market before. Insights.matchbook.com if you want a full recap of all the guys' picks. That'll be available late Thursday afternoon onwards. And some of those picks include our any other bets. Adrian, we'll start with you here. We've got a couple of selections, and Wolves and Gary O'Neill, they finally got off the mark there.
Yeah, I consider this as a long shot. Just to back Wolves, who are sort of over 5. But I've gone against that. This was prompted actually by a Fulham supporting friend of mine who said, "We got Wolves at the weekend. We never beat Wolves." So I looked into it, and it's kind of true. They've won just one of their last 8 Premier League meetings against Wolves. Lost 4 of them. A few draws chucked in there. They're a bit of a bogey team, Wolves, for Fulham in recent times. So if you believe in that kind of thing, then this bet might be of interest. I think Wolves are getting there. I really do. After that tough start, it's a much more sort of palatable set of fixtures for them. And despite having a really rough ride in terms of the teams they've played, they've scored in each of their last 10 matches, Wolves. That's brilliant. That's not relegation form, in my opinion. They've scored 5 in their last 2 away games at Brentford and at Brighton. They've scored 6 goals across their last 3 games, full stop, two in each of those games. So that, they're feeling confident inside the final third. I do worry about them a little bit at the back, but they're getting there. I can't say anything bad about Fulham. There's nothing really negative to report. I like them. I just think they're a bit short priced here against a team that have a rotten record against. So Wolves for me, 3 unbeaten. Got that win finally. A weight lifted off their shoulders. Might they just go and back that up again with a win or even a draw at Craven Cottage? And that's where I'm going. Well, you can get Wolves on the handicap here at plus 3/4 goal at 2.08. So that covers the draw. We win. Any Wolves win, we win. And even if Fulham, do win by a single goal, we get a little bit of money back. So, it's quite an attractive bet, this one, for me. Just as a cheeky one to follow if you're neutral. Obviously, Wolves fans might want to get on board, but yeah, it's just I'm going a little bit on historical stuff, but also on the fact that Wolves keep scoring. And if they score in this game, are Fulham going to get 2, 3, 4? I don't know. They might, but I think Wolves are capable of being competitive here. I really do.
Okay, that price incidentally for +3.25. Again, Asian handicap 208. The second selection here is Wrexham at home to Exeter, currently 186.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that you can back Wrexham at this price at home. They've dropped off a little bit results wise. They've not scored as many goals of late, Wrexham, but at their own stadium, that famous old ground, that they got an amazing record across the last few years under Phil Parkinson with the new ownership. They've won 6 of 7 home games this season already. They drew the other one. They're top of the home table, Wrexham, and yeah, they're playing an Exeter team that are going quite well. They're in the top half, which is a bit of a surprise. But if you look a little bit deeper, they've played no one in the top 5 all season. Exeter, they've had quite a kind run of games, and against teams in the top half, of which they've only actually had 5 matches against teams in the top half, which is really low. They've lost 3, drawn 1, and lost 1, and they haven't really pulled up any trees in those games. So I make Wrexham strong favourites here. It's a little bit like Newcastle at St James's. I always want to back Wrexham on home turf, and you can get them on the nose at a nice price, I think. 1.86.
Okay, yeah, 186 there. There are the 2 selections there. Any other bet section? Mark, you have 3 here, so you're gonna have to fly through these. Especially, have you got like a 30-second K? Can you adapt? How does it work? 3.
Yeah, well, one of them was my best bet, but there was a late change, but I couldn't sort of change the rest of them. I had to include them all. So
that's okay.
I'll start in France. Nice versus Strasbourg. It's got the prime time slot on Sunday night in Ligue 1 because these 2 teams have been amongst the great entertainers in France this season. Only PSG and Marseille have scored more goals than Nice and Strasbourg. I'm going to back both teams to score at 1.8. My goals model suggests it should be closer to 161. The pair are averaging 163 and 151 expected goals when excluding penalties. Nice have scored in 9 of 11, Strasbourg in 10 of 11, but they've managed only 4 clean sheets between them in 22 combined league matches. BTTS has won in 7 of 11 for Nice, 4 of 5 at home, and 9 of 11 for Strasbourg, 4 of 5 away. Nice are now coached by Franck Hayes, formerly of Lens. He's got a very strong squad on paper. They've been riddled with injuries, though. They still pack plenty of punch in forward areas. And they've scored at home against the likes of PSG, Monaco, Lille. Actually scored twice against both Monaco and Lille, so they should be capable of scoring here. Then you got Strasbourg with Liam Rosenior, now head coach. Started really well. 3 defeats in 4 before the international break, mind. But 2 of them were against PSG and Monaco, and they scored 3 goals across those 2 games as well. So they've been very good fun to follow. They've played 6 of the top 8, and those games have ended 2-4, 1-3, 1-0, 3-3, 3-4, 2-2. 7 of their 11 games overall have gone over 3.5 goals. So both teams to score looks a nice price there. We'll move to Italy, Serie B, actually. Spezia, who were relegated the season before last, only finished 3 points above the drop zone last season. But their form from mid-January onwards has been tremendous, really. They lost just twice last season from mid-January until the end of the campaign. And they've started this season unbeaten across the first 13 match days, 7 wins and 6 draws. They're sitting in 3rd, only 3 points off the top. They have the best defence in the division, 8 goals conceded in 13, 7 clean sheets. But what's most impressive is in their last 7 league games, they've conceded just 1 goal. They're at home this weekend. They picked up 5 wins and 1 draw from their opening 6 home games. And they're 183 to beat a Sudatrol side who are 3rd from bottom, 8 defeats from their last 11, scoring 1 goal in their last 4. They've lost 4 of 6 away, and they've lost all 7 against teams in 12th and above. They've also managed just 1 clean sheet as well. So if they do concede again, Spezia do not give a lot away, and I expect them to get the points. And the bet that was going to be my best bet, which has been relegated to this slot, is Frankfurt. Our friends Eintracht Frankfurt are playing Werder Bremen this weekend, and overs and BTTS is trading at 1.8. I've talked about Frankfurt many, many times. Just so much fun to follow. They had that 3-2 win at Stuttgart before the break. They followed a 7-2 thrashing of Bochum. They're now third, just a point off Leipzig in second. They're averaging 2.6 goals per game. They've scored at least twice in 7 of 10. They've scored 3 goals or more in 5 of 10. And at home, they've scored 15 goals in 4 games, which includes 3 against Bayern. The issue is defensively, just 1 clean sheet in 10. 6 of their opponents have scored at least twice against them. Luckily for them, though, Bremen are just as awful defensively. 21 goals conceded in 10 games, 1 clean sheet. 6 of their opponents have scored at least twice, but they've not really been tested away from home. But their away record is remarkably good, actually. But just some wacky scorelines: 2-2, 2-1, 4-3, 4-2, 1-4. So 4 of their 5 away games have featured at least 4 goals. The bet here is overs and BTTS combined. It has won in 14 of their combined 20 matches so far this season. That's a 70% hit rate, and we're getting 1.8 on a repeat.
Love that. So we have over 2.5 goals on both teams to score. Frankfurt, Bremen, Nice, Strasbourg, both teams to score, and Spezia 183. That's 3 selections from Mark O'Hare, and all those selections will be on insights.matchbook.com. Long shots time, and Adrian, I know you've smashed it out of the park with Brighton and both teams to score, and I know Mark was close to lining a 4-fold of similar things that you're about to put up with 3 out of 4, but under 2.5 goals, 4-fold. I mean, unless you're out and about, you don't want to be cheering that on.
It's true. But let's see.
Make the case.
Let's see if I can persuade you. Well, look.
Yes.
It kind of was prompted by some of the scores last weekend, which is across the EFL, which was so low scoring, so many 0-0s. It was just boring. But the EFL is not really followed the Premier League's influx of goals this season, and the Championship is remarkably dull in terms of goal output. Under 2.5 has landed in 58% of matches in the second tier this season, which sort of flies in the face of what we see in the top tier, doesn't it? So maybe there's a bit of value to be had in backing the unders. The vast majority of teams in the division have been involved in more low-scoring games than they have high. So this prompted this particular ACCA. Gone for a 4-fold with 4 of the sort of the most dull-looking matches that I could find. I've gone with Bristol City against Burnley. 7 of Burnley's 8 away games under 2.5 goals. Burnley's games average 1.5 goals. And Bristol City recently drew at home to Leeds 0-0. They're a very well-organised team. Could see it landing there. West Brom at home to Norwich. Every West Brom game has gone under 2.5 goals at the Hawthorns. The Hawthorns is averaging 0.43 goals per game, which is just dreadful. Norwich, 5 of their 8 away games have gone under, missing a lot of their strikers at the moment. Could see it landing. Millwall, Sunderland. Sunderland have got a lot of key players missing, most of them attackers. Millwall, you know what Millwall are going to do. They're going to grind it out. Going to be very, very well organised and hard to beat. 11 of 15 Millwall games have gone under 2.5 goals this season. They'll look to stifle Sunderland. And Swansea versus Leeds, 6 of 7 Swans home games under 2.5. 6 of 7 Leeds away games under 2.5. So there's a lot of numbers there, but they all point in the direction of low scoring games. So let's bring it on. Let's bring on this sort of this ACCA that no one really wants to get involved in because it's painful. What's the price? Tell me the price. Is it 7.7?
7.7. Yeah, producer Ryan I think was all over that. Before you come in, Mark, I scrolled through West Brom's results saying that was a little bit low. I don't think that's correct. Home results, that is 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 1-0, 1-0, and 0-0 opening day of the season against Leeds. So that's disgraceful, Mark. I'm sorry.
Well, the West Brom at home under Corberan and Burnley away under Parker. When West Brom host Burnley, just close the curtains. -1 each. Dreadful.
Under 2.5 goal, 4-fold. You can of course do multiples on the match with Bet and Exchange. Bristol City, Burnley, West Brom, Norwich, Millwall, Sunderland, and Swansea versus Leeds. Yeah, I think I'm getting more than that. Mark, take it away with your not so fun, well, more fun long shot in some ways, but less going on, I guess.
Yeah, it's Friday night actually. This one, Plymouth versus Watford, and look, the underlying data isn't particularly favourable for Plymouth. They're ranked as the worst team in the Championship if you look at the raw data. But Watford are in the top 6. Plymouth are struggling at the minute, and I think Plymouth have got a shot here. They have got key injuries. 3 key players are missing and absent for this particular match, but what the data doesn't tell you is Plymouth tend to raise their game at home park, and they just have a knack of turning it on against almost any side really down in Devon. And I think this game being played on a Friday night immediately after the international break does give them a slight advantage here. They have 5 players away on international duty. All 5 are based in Europe. Watford had 10 players away on international duty, 4 of which were based outside of Europe. So immediately there's a little advantage for Plymouth, with Watford probably getting their squad together late this midweek and then having to travel down to Plymouth and Devon probably today to prepare for the game on Friday night. Tom Cleverley has come out sort of sounding a warning to Championship teams, saying his team haven't come close to hitting their top gear yet, despite sitting in the top 6. But the truth is they've only really performed sporadically. I think they've been really lacking consistency, especially away from home, which is kind of emphasised by the last 2 away days. They smashed Sheffield Wednesday 6-2 and then turned on immediately after and lost 1-0 away at Swansea. And that was their 6th defeat in 8 away days now this season. They've also conceded multiple goals in 6 of 8 away games. They've allowed a huge 2.05 expected goals per game on average when playing outside of Vicarage Road. So to see them pretty short here at 2.25, 2.30 to win away, considering all of that, it's not for me. And for that reason, I want to oppose them. I think Plymouth, if you ever are going to back Plymouth, it always has to be at home park. You know, they just do not perform away from home. They failed to even have a shot away recently at Leeds in defeat. I've seen them away. I forget who the other game was, but I certainly saw them play away at Loftus Road against Arlott, and we had over 30 shots really, and somehow they burgled a point off us. But you know, at home they've picked up 14 of their 16 points, lost just once in 7. They've even turned over Sunderland, top of the table Sunderland, at home park. They've beaten Blackburn, who are also in the top 10 at home, and despite being a sort of bottom half straggler since the start of last season, they've won 14 of 30 home league games, which shows they are very capable of turning it on in front of their home supporters. So I think with all those variables, which are very difficult to kind of put into a model and extrapolate an accurate price, I do think we're getting a better than expected price on Plymouth to win the game. That's around 3.25, I think, but if you include over 1.5 goals, it gets us to 3.85. Basically, Plymouth to score at least twice and win the game. As I say, Watford have lost 6 of 8 away and conceded multiple goals in 6 of 8 away as well.
Okay, 3.85 Plymouth and over 1.5 goals. Best bet time. Yeah.
No, I think they're favourites. Yeah, I think Plymouth are favourites. So good pick there.
A lot of agreement on the EFL sections. I like it. Adrian, best bet time under 2.5 goals. West Ham, Everton 0-0. Fair play. Well done.
Yeah,
I hope you're happy with yourself.
It looks a tapping when you think back, but in
hindsight, yeah. Well, fair play. Leeds double chance under 2.5 goals. A game you covered in the 2.5 will make the case for Leeds more so, or double chance at least.
Yeah, it's in the fourfold. Look, Leeds are flying, aren't they? They're doing well. They're sort of on course for automatic promotion. They did lose 1-0 away at Millwall in their last road trip. A lot of teams will do that this season. Millwall playing very well. I think they'll learn from that and get the job done. But it won't be easy against a Swansea team that are a little bit West Brom, as in they've scored 11 goals in 15 games and conceded 10. So they have been very, very low scoring themselves. Don't give much away. Don't score much. They look after the ball really well. They're organised. Manager's smart, but they don't have a lot of tools to sort of hurt the best teams in the Championship. And Leeds are definitely among the best teams in the Championship. Leeds, for what it's worth, have conceded 4 goals in 7 away games in the Championship this season, which is a brilliant record. So they don't give a lot away. I'll repeat a stat I said earlier: 6 of 7 Swansea home games under 2.5 goals. 6 of 7 Leeds away games under 2.5 goals. Put that over the season as a whole: 12 of 15 for Swansea under, 10 of 15 for Leeds under. Championship is a low scoring league this time around. But Leeds are the stronger team. So I want to pair under 2.5 goals with Leeds double chance. I don't think they get beat back to back at Millwall and Swansea. I think the worst they come away with at Swansea is a draw. I was at this game last year. They won it, and they won it well. It might be tougher this time around. It could be a 1-0 or 2-0. But I think You know, it might even be a draw, but all of those bets are on side with this. So yes, Leeds double chance and under 2.5 goals comes in at a nice 2.2.
Okay, yeah, let's move on to our final best bet here. Mark, you rarely go to the Premier League. I mean, and this bet would suggest that you think Liverpool are still underrated by the market and Southampton somehow overrated just based on this price and this bet.
Maybe. I mean, sometimes the best bets are the most obvious ones, right? I'm not inventing the wheel here by expecting Liverpool to go to St Mary's and win. I'm just going to try and keep it relatively simple by backing the best team in the league so far against the worst team in the league so far at what I think is a reasonable price. Like Liverpool are trading around 1.31 to win the game. That's fair enough. Like I can't disagree with that price. Say it's value or not, really. It's where I expect it to be. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out who the most likely winner of the match is based on that. But to engineer a price of closer to 1.77 by just including under 4.5 goals, that suddenly makes it much more palatable and appealing to me into best bet territory, actually. And I hadn't really seen, I sort of did another scan of the Premier League on Thursday morning and kind of came up with this. And I was like, wow, that's a really quite attractive price for a team who've won 9 of 11, conceded just 6 goals in those 11. They played 7 teams below 8th in the Premier League. They've won them all and conceded just 1 goal. It's 4 wins and 5 away, only dropping points at Arsenal. And it's all felt pretty measured, pretty controlled. Just one of those 11 games have featured over 3.5 goals. We're only looking for under 4.5 goals. It gets the correct scores: 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 2-1, and 3-1 onside against the Saints side, who've lost 9 of 11. 7 goals scored in 11. They've lost all 7 against teams in 13th and above. None of those matches went over 4.5, and that included defeats at the Etihad and the Emirates. So, you know, I just 177 on Liverpool to win, basically, for me is what I'm trying to get at here. I don't see this game featuring 5 or more goals.
Okay, Liverpool under 4.5 goals, 177, the best bet on the card for Mark O'Hare. We're done. I'm going to steal those West Brom stats for a tweet, I think, Adrian. I think the people need to know. I don't think they know. Don't think they know enough about that. Dreadful home goals and entertainment value. But my thanks to Mark and Adrian. We'll be back all going well Monday to preview the Champions League action. Reminder, because it's safer gambling week, but every week, make sure betting on football enhances that enjoyment, but please do so responsibly. Enjoy the weekend's football. We will chat to you on Monday. Bye-bye.